Good morning. Ooh, it sounds nice. Ladies and gentlemen, honored guests, allow me to welcome you to the 14th Annual English Book Day. My name is Matija Janičić, and I was somewhat undeservedly bestowed with an honor to welcome you all here today and deliver this short speech on behalf of your hosts, the English Book. We cannot exaggerate how delighted we are to see you all here today and how thankful we are that all of you could come. Many of you have traveled long distances to be here, and that serves as a reminder to us just how important our work is. The English Book has been committed to actively raising the quality of English language teaching provision in Serbia and beyond for the past 2.5 decades. In this rapidly changing world, not necessarily for the better, we strive to keep the high standards that were set in the past and promise to do so in years to come. The overarching theme of this year's conference is about reaching beyond your comfort zone to create an enriching class, a class that enhances. For that purpose, we have asked 3 eminent speakers from the ELT world to share their experience with you. We are honored to have Ms. Lorena Roberts, Mr. Duncan Ford, and Ms. Fiona MacMillan here with us today. They're all esteemed specialists and authors in the area of English language teaching. Ms. Roberts probably needs no introduction in Serbia. Generations of children, some of which are now in their 20s, have learned their first words in English with the Happy series, the Happy House. The happy, happy, happy house. Today, Ms. Roberts is going to reveal what else, apart from obvious love and deep understanding of young learners, has been involved in the creation of one of the world's most successful English language courses for children, the Happy series. Mr. Ford is the director of Oxford TEFL Barcelona with over 30 years of experience in ELT, teacher training, and school leadership and management. He has authored and co-authored books on teacher development, some very fine, I must say, and today he's going to present some useful activities for your students, but with a coaching twist. Ms. MacMillan, I hope I pronounced it properly this time, is also an acclaimed author, trainer, and a teacher. Today, she will give you the hows and whys of using visuals in order to bring global issues and critical thinking into the classrooms of teens and adults. Ladies and gentlemen, prepare yourselves to be inspired. Before I hand over to Mr. Bach, I want to say once more, on behalf of the English Book, welcome. It is truly wonderful to see you here.
Hi, everyone. This is amazing. This is a great selfie opportunity, really. But I'll skip that for now and then save it for later. You might not know who I am. Let me introduce myself. My name is Jakub, and I'm a MacMillan sales manager for CE, Eastern and Central Europe. This means that I take care of more than 15 countries. And that means that I get to travel a lot, I get to work a lot, but I'm trapped in this body that likes to sleep a lot. So I don't know if you're having this paradox, but I'm really glad you did not sleep in today and you're here. I've met the trainers, they were introduced, and I'm sure you're in for a treat today. Now, thank you for inviting me, first of all. It's my second time to Serbia, but it's my first time at this event. I'm really glad we have this strong partnership with the English Book. I cannot divulge too much information, but I'm really happy and really hopeful because we are brewing something new with the English Book, and I hope we can bring some new and exciting and exhilarating materials for you English teachers in Serbia in the future. I'll be here all day, so if you'd like to talk to someone from MacMillan and chat about MacMillan books, I'll be here. That's it for me. I won't take too much of your time. I would like to welcome Lorena Roberts, the author. Happy, happy house. All right, thank you.
How do I? Okay, let's turn myself on. Okay, how do I move this one? Hello, everyone. It's fantastic to be here. When I got the email from Lisa, maybe she is, inviting me to come and speak to you all, I kind of had really mixed emotions. I was really excited. I'd never been to Serbia before, so that was really cool. I was a little bit nervous. Unlike my fellow presenters, I don't very often do this, so I was a little bit nervous. And to be perfectly honest, I was actually a little bit surprised. And I was surprised because, well, Happy's just been around for so long. And when I think back, when I was started writing the Happy series, more than 20 years ago, I don't think I ever, in my wildest dreams, imagined that 20 years on, I would be standing here now, still talking about the Happy series, with so many teachers, and hopefully so many students, enjoying our books. It's been a real treat. Just out of interest, can I have a show of hands? How many of you are actually using? Okay, quite a few. And dare I ask, I don't suppose any of you were actually taught with Happy, were you? That would be really freaky. No. Phew, that's okay. That would make me feel really, really old if you put some hands up, so I'm pleased about that. Okay, so Happy series was first published in 2000, so next year will be our 20th anniversary, which is amazing. Anyway, it's nearly 20 years. We've sold nearly 12 million copies of various levels. And this was really amazing. This really amazed me. I only found this out the other day. In 120 countries. Argentina, Chile, France, Spain. No, I'm not going to list them all. But I don't think I even know 120 countries, so where it's gone, I have no idea. But the top three, in third place, Spain, Serbia, bring it on, Serbia, you're number 2, so you've got a bit of work to do. You've got to overtake the Czech Republic, because at the moment they're top of the table, but I'm hopeful you'll get there. So, I can't take all the credit. I'm sure Stella would love to see her picture up there. This is Stella Maidment, my co-author. I certainly couldn't have done it without her. She came from a very different professional background from mine. So I think we made a fantastic team because Stella had no ELT background experience at all. She worked in children's publishing, but she worked in trade books. So she wrote proper children's books, so storybooks. So she brought fantastic creativity, imagination, and a real understanding of what makes a good story. And I hope you'll agree, I think the stories and the songs in the Happy series are one of the key selling points. It was also great because our backgrounds, our family situation was kind of different. Stella lives in the city, I live in the country. Stella has 2 girls, I have 2 boys. So we kind of had different experiences to bring. But also Stella has a cat on whom she based Otto, and I have a dog. So there was a lot of mix of experience there. So The first thing we had to come up with was a concept. And originally, this seems really strange to think now, but originally, we did some research, and this course originally was going to be called Treasure Chest, and it was going to be about pirates traveling the world and exploring. And I went with one of the editors and we did some research. We went to Argentina and Chile, so Spain, a few countries. And we took this idea with us. The teachers hated it. Hated it. Pirates? They said, we got pirates. They steal. They kill people. We don't want pirates in the classroom. So from that, we thought, okay, we get the message. So we came back to Oxford, we sat around the table, and our characters went from being seafaring explorers traveling the world to a house. Couldn't have been more different. But it worked. The concept of starting in the house and moving out into the street and then into the world with Happy Earth kind of reflects the children's own development. So they start in the house with the family, which reflects their own experiences, because in Happy House the children are still very little. So it's a very real environment for them, it's a very unthreatening environment for them, and the language is natural because it comes from their world. And similarly, when they move out into the street, our children, our happy children, Polly and Jack, are doing the same kind of things that hopefully the children in your classes are doing. So there, is this working? I can't find it. Where is it? You tell I'm not very good at this. Oh. Okay, here we go, here we have it. So here we've got Polly and Jack, and anybody know who this is? Jason in the shop, we've got Lenny over here, Mr. Potter, Greg's mum next door, there she is. So it just provided us with so much scope, even though it's just a street. It just provided us with lots of situations, lots of scenarios with which the children would be familiar. And so the language that came out of it was just really natural. Also the idea of the street, I don't know about in Serbia, but in England people love soap operas. And so many of our soap operas are just based in a street. There's one in England called Coronation Street, I don't know if you've heard of it. I think it's been going for about 50 years. And it's just one street. Okay, the characters change, but some of the locations stay the same. So we thought, well, if Coronation Street can do it, we can do it. And, so that was our starting point. That, and the fact that we knew it had to be a story-based course. That was the feedback that we got from day one, was the teachers wanted lots of stories. So this is a Happy House story. First level, no words on the page, very unthreatening. Once we've established the house and the street, the editors came to us and they said, it's great, but maybe a house is a bit boring. We need a little bit of fantasy. Can you bring some fantasy into it? So we thought, okay, what can we do? We didn't kind of want, at this level, we didn't want monsters, we didn't want aliens. Again, we didn't want anything that was going to be scary or threatening. And we wanted to bring in humour. So it's a typical dynamic cat and mouse story. And Otto, the cat, is always trying to catch the mice, or catch them out, play tricks on them. It's not violent, it's not aggressive, it's just a lot of fun. So now I'm going to tell you a little story about the story. A few months ago, we received an email from one of the reps in the Czech Republic. And he sent us a letter. We will get the letter. Oh, can you read that? Okay, it says, who put Otto inside the present in Happy House 1, Unit 5? Vodka Aj. Thank you. Well, if this is a little boy using Happy House 1, he was probably 5 at the most. Let's go back to the story. There it is. So he wanted to know who put Otto, how did Otto get in the box? And I thought, oh, you always get one, don't you? You always get one child who, troublemaker. And I was sitting there thinking, oh, Stella, how are we going to explain this one? And she said, remember, she's the one who has the cat. I'm the one who has the dog. A dog just wouldn't do that. So I said, of course I know the answer. It's obvious. So is it? So anyway, she wrote a reply to this little boy. And she said, it was Mum's birthday. So Dad, the dad of the family, had bought Mum a necklace. But he didn't want Mum to guess that it was a necklace. So he got a big box, and he put the necklace in the big box, got the wrapping paper ready, and when he went off to get a ribbon, while he was off getting the ribbon, Otto wrote Spike on the label and jumped in the box. Dad came back, he wrapped the box, and Spike fell asleep, and Otto fell asleep inside. The cat fell asleep inside the box. And she sent the reply to the little boy. We never heard back from the little boy, so we don't know whether he believed Stella's explanation. But the point is that little boy was so intrigued by the story and so curious and maybe a little bit disbelieving, I don't know. But that motivated him to send us a letter. And that meant so much, because you think, well, if he took the trouble to do that, and maybe with the help of his teacher or a parent, to write that letter to us, you think, well, that's what stories do, isn't it? That's what stories do, and that's why we have so many stories in the Happy series, because they trigger the imagination, they encourage creativity, and as with this little boy, they encourage curiosity. And as educators, teachers, book writers, anybody in education, isn't that really our main aim? As well as teaching language, we want to teach our children to be inquisitive, to ask questions, to be creative, and stories are such a great starting point for that. Stories also present language in a context which is very clear. You don't actually need any words on the page to understand this story. And with a lot of stories, if they're well written and they're simple and they're clear, you could, in most cases, remove the text and you'd pretty much know what was going on. So in terms of teaching children and young learners, stories are so clear that they make the language very, very simple to understand. And they provide a very natural context for the language. Because at this level, the stories are really just dialogues. So stories, once we've got the context, these were our starting point. Okay. Oh, I've got to show you that one. This was the photograph that Stella sent with her letter to prove her theory about Otto getting in the box. Can you see the cat? There he is. He's just there. So Stella sent that to the little boy. Hopefully he was convinced. Okay. So in Happy Street, we've moved on. The children have moved on. From Happy House 1 to Happy Street 1, they're a couple of years older. So by this level, we thought we could take the fantasy a little bit further. Outside the house, outside the street. And so we have Colin in Computerland. Which is, yeah. Unlike the house stories and the mouse stories and the family stories, Colin in Computerland we used very much. We wanted them to have stories which weren't necessarily focusing on teaching the language. We wanted them to have stories which they could just enjoy. So these are there much more to practice the reading skill, the comprehension, and at the end of the day, to have some fun. Stories are also great because if it's a good story, you can use them again and again. You can use them in different ways. Or you can just do them as a bit of fun at the end of the lesson. I went to a school in Spain once to observe, and I was observing a class, and at the end of the lesson, all the children started banging on their desks. I was thinking, whoa, what's going on here? They were banging on their desks. Call in, call in, call in. Whole class. What's going on? And the teacher said, I get this every day. She said, every day at the end of the lesson, we have to have a quick Colin story. And that's their treat. If they've been good, they can have a Colin story at the end. And there aren't that many Colin stories, so they must have them repeated. But if it's a strong story and the children are involved, they're happy to have them repeated. I remember my boys were little, and they loved Thomas the Tank Engine. Do you know Thomas the Tank Engine? I could not stand Thomas the Tank Engine. I hated. We used to hide the Thomas the Tank Engine at the bottom of the pile and say, oh, we want Thomas. Not again. So, yeah, almost every day. And I would try to maybe turn over 2 pages at the same time, or skip a few lines, just to make it a bit quicker, because, the stories are quite long. And they would know, no, Mummy, that's wrong. You missed a bit. Go back. Oh, really? So, children love stories, they love them repeated, and they love that familiarity, which is another reason why in Happy we didn't want lots of different stories. So in every lesson there's a different story with different characters and a different scenario. We kept it very tight, and we kept it very tight for a reason. Because the children feel comfortable. Children are happy with what they know. They feel comfortable, they feel safe, and when they're comfortable and they're safe, then they enjoy everything a lot more, like we all do. And the other thing we did, which was a very conscious decision, was that when we developed the lessons so that they all, within each level, they all follow a standard format. And that wasn't just because we were being lazy and we couldn't be bothered to think of a different way of organising the lessons, but that was because, partly, it helps the teachers. Once you've done a couple of lessons, you kind of understand the format and how the lessons work. But also for the children. They know what to expect. They kind of know what's coming next. Obviously, the activities are slightly different, and the stories are different, and the songs are different, but there is a pattern there. And again, that's all about feeling comfortable. We like to think of the Happy books as kind of like a comfort blanket. There's nothing there which is threatening or going to upset the children or worry them or they'll feel anxious about. There's, do you know this is a Chinese proverb? Does anybody know what the missing words are? It'll come up in a minute. No? Nobody heard this one? Oh, somebody's saying something there. Hang on, it'll come up in a minute. Something and I forget. What do you think it is? I hear. It'll come up in a minute, hopefully. I hear and I forget. I see and I remember. And I do and I understand. Here it comes. It's a bit slow. So we've got the stories, which establish the context and present the language in a very, very clear way. So the children they understand the meaning of those words, but now we want them to understand the language much more deeply. Where's that one going on? So in order to get them to understand how the language actually works, we need them to use it. It's kind of like, I suppose, learning to ride a bike. Somebody can tell you how to ride a bike, and you probably just forget about it or get bored. Somebody might show you how to ride a bike, and you'll think, okay, yeah, that looks fairly simple. Just sit on it, turn the pedals. But until you actually get on that bike, and maybe fall off a few times, you're not going to learn how to ride a bike. And it's similar with children learning anything, adults learning anything. We all need to get out there and do it, use it. So, there we go. So there are lots of opportunities in the Happy series for children to do things with the language. This is one of them, Polly and Jack. The best way for children to use the language, for it to be meaningful for them, is to make it really communicative. So I've got to be giving you some information that you didn't know, or you've got to be giving me some information I didn't know. And if it's personal information, if it's real, true information, then that's even better. So here, Polly and Jack, Jack's trying to find out which pizza Polly would like. So the various different alternatives with a combination of mushrooms, olives, and peppers. So I'm going to take drink of a glass of water. And while I'm doing that, I want you to work with your partner. Quick 5 minutes. Can you find out which of these pizzas your partner would like for lunch today? Off you go, I'm going to have a glass of water. Okay. All right, are you sorted for lunch? Are you sorted? Okay, so let's see which was the most popular pizza. How many of your partners wanted pizza number 1? Just olives. Oh, olives are not very popular, okay. Peppers and mushrooms, number 2. I don't think anybody wanted any pizza, did they? Mushrooms, olives, and peppers. Did we have any mushrooms, olives, and peppers? Oh, okay, you like lots of toppings on your pizzas, obviously. Anybody want number 6? That's a bit boring. It's not even a margarita, is it? Anybody want number 6? Okay, you get my point. The children are using the language. It's a very, very simple substitution, basically. But they are giving real communication about themselves. And they're having to manipulate the language and do something with it in order to really understand it. Because understanding isn't just about knowing what the words mean. It's about being able to use it in different situations with different people to convey different messages. Okay. The other way that we enable children to do something with the language is with our little tiny books, Tina's tiny books. So we introduce a different mouse, Tina, in the nice little spotty dress. And it's another story, but again, very, very simple. So in this story, Spike and Tina are in the supermarket. And we learn at the beginning that Spike likes cheese. So as he goes around the supermarket, he's getting a little bit worried and a little bit disappointed. He finds rice. He doesn't like rice. I don't like fish, he says. I don't like yogurt. Yes, I like cheese. He finds the cheese. It's a very simple story. It's using a very simple structure, repeating it each time, and providing a really simple model for the children to create their own story. Obviously, the scope of that creativity is quite limited because they don't have a lot of language, but they can choose 1, 2, 3, 4 different foods that they can add to their story. So they can draw in any food they want, as long as they ask the teacher, and the teacher knows what the words for those foods are. And they colour it in, they cut it out, they fold it up, and they make a little book. And the great thing about that is that they can also take that little book home and show their parents, their family. So again, it's encouraging the children to use the language, but it's also encouraging them to be creative, because that's what we want. I heard a story the other day about a little boy in class, and he wasn't paying attention to what was going on in the lesson. So the teacher said to him, "Johnny, what are you doing?" And he said, "I'm drawing." And she said, "Okay, what are you drawing?" And he said, "I'm drawing a picture of God." And she said, "But nobody knows what God looks like." And the little boy said, "They will in a minute." And that's what I mean. Children are naturally creative. So giving them even a simple opportunity to express the language themselves has to be our ultimate priority. In the later levels, this is I think in the new edition, this Happy Street 1 new edition. So again, it's allowing the children to use the language. They have a very clear model first, and then they can draw their own bedroom. This is about Greg writing an email about his bedroom, describing his bedroom, and then the children write a reply. And again, he's a central character, so there's somebody that hopefully they feel they know, and they have the opportunity to write about themselves. Okay. So once the children, our students, have understood what the language means, they've understood how to use that language in different contexts to talk about themselves, maybe to talk about other people. The next thing we want is for children to be able to remember what they've learned. Because there's not much point doing all these fun activities if at the end of the day they don't remember any of it. So one of the keys to remembering, apart from the activities being stimulating and memorable, is through repetition, is through using the language again and again and again. There's a book by a guy called Richard Palmer called The Brain Train. It's quite an old book, and I remember we were encouraged to buy it when we were students. And it's all about how to train your brain to remember things. And according to Richard Palmer, how we remember things is directly proportionate to the number of times that we study it or use it. So the more often you do something, or the more often you study something, or the more often you see something, the more likely you are to remember it, to learn it. So in the classroom, we have the 3 R's. So we have repetition, which is short-term repetition. We have recycling, which is medium-term. So you might recycle the next day, or the end of the week, or the next lesson. And then revision. And by repeating the language in different contexts at different times, you will help your children to remember what they've learned. One of the best ways of using the first R, repetition, is with songs. We can have a little play of this one, if you like. And I've gone back again, hang on. Let's see if I can get this one working with the mouse. Oh, no. Do you know this song? Some of you know it? Oh, come on, I can't get this to play. Technical help again, I'm afraid. Yeah. Never mind. Doesn't matter. Never mind. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I was going to play you the song, but it doesn't matter. It's no problem. Okay. I could sing it for you, but I don't really think you'd want that. So it's a woman and a dog waiting at the bus stop, woman and a dog waiting at the bus stop. It's a cumulative song, a bit like, do you know, can you think of another very famous old English song that's very similar? Where we might have got inspiration? Do you know One Man Went to Mow? It's kind of a bit like that. So it's a woman and a dog waiting at the bus stop, a woman and a dog waiting at the bus stop, a woman and a dog, and a boy and a baby and a woman and a dog, and it builds up. So it's fun. Children love songs. And there's something about songs which help us to remember the words. There's something about the rhythm and the melody which helps the language to stick. And also with songs, like stories, you can play them again and again. You know, how many times do you have a song that you like? It's very rare that you just listen to it once. You'll listen to it again and again. And I can think of songs that, you know, sometimes it amazes me how our brains work. That you can hear a song that maybe you heard, you know, when you were a child or a teenager, but as soon as that tune comes up, the words just come into your head. How does that work? It's bizarre, isn't it? But there is something about songs. So providing the students with a lot of repetition will help them to memorize and learn the language that they need. I remember when I was at school, and we had for our homework, we had to learn a poem, and I'd forgotten, hadn't done it. And I turned up to the lesson and I thought, oh no, I'm going to get into trouble. I haven't done my homework. Luckily, the teacher started at the other end of the classroom, and all the students had to one by one recite the poem. So as each student was reciting the poem, I was sitting there repeating it. And by the time it got to me, I was one of the last, luckily. And I'd gone over it so many times in my head that I'd learnt it. And I still remember that poem now. So, songs, chants, poems, with a strong melody, a good beat, is not only fun, because at the end of the day we want our kids to have fun as well, but it's also a fantastic way of providing repetition. This is similar, this is the happy house, similar pair work activity to the pizza, but on a much simpler level. All it is really is a substitution drill, because the children are asking exactly the same question, but just changing the colour. So it's a very, very simple drill, but it's fun. And again, it's personal, because the children are choosing one item, and by answering a series of questions, their partner has to guess which box which item it is, by saying which box it's in. So it's very simple, but by the end of it, the children will have practiced that question over and over again. Okay. Quizzes, questions. We don't, sometimes, this isn't really a test. It is kind of a test, but it's children testing themselves. So this provides the revision at the end of each lesson. And giving children the opportunity to look back, to think back, to have that reflective time, again, is really important. And it's important also for them to know that, you're not testing them, they're just checking. And it gives you as teachers an opportunity to check how much they've really remembered and how much they've understood. And of course, at the end of it, they can award themselves an okay, a good, or an excellent. I would imagine that it's always excellent, is that right? I can't imagine you ever have any children who are just saying that their performance is okay. And that's good. That's what we want. Oop, too far. So, the formula, which I hope we achieved with our books, how to give students the best possible means to learn is to provide them with the tools that they need to understand the language. And by understanding, that means understanding how to use the language as well as just what the individual words mean. We want to give them lots of opportunity to use that language again and again, in the short term, in the medium term, in the long term, so that that language becomes ingrained, that they can use it later on. It's not just in and out. And all the time that they're doing all of that, one of the most important things is that we want them to just enjoy their English classes. And I'm sure they do enjoy your English classes. And hopefully, all of those things will produce some effective learning in your classrooms. Thank you.